There are so many different ways to repurpose your podcast content, but so often we think about just our own show or our own content. As a guest, there are so many different ways that we can actually take those episodes and really stretch those as far as we possibly can. During this episode with Lyndsay, we talk through different ways to leverage your podcast guesting performances into even more content that can not only help you with sales, can generate leads, but also creates content that resonates with your audience and can actually move your business forward. Please join me in welcoming Lyndsay to the podcast. Hello, Lyndsay. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and about your podcast.
Yeah, and it's great to connect with you again. Of course, you've been on my show, which is the Leverage Your Podcast show. You gave so many good tips, strategies, and we'll have to link to that again. And so for me, I'm in the podcasting space as well. And so my specialty is really focusing on the guests and so that they can leverage and repurpose that content to get more leads, clients, and opportunities and to create content so they're not trying to figure it out from week to week.
It's such an important strategy, right? I think that so often people think, oh, I want to create consistent content. I'm going to have a podcast, or I'm going to have a blog, or I'm going to have a video series. And while that's all good, I think that if you're just starting out or you're just trying to figure out what medium you even like to show up in, being a guest on other people's platforms is the quickest way to get you testing it out, right? And trying things out. When you first launched your podcast, what were you kind of like thinking or feeling? Had you been a guest on other people's show, or what did that look like for you?
None of it. I was freaking petrified. I was like, and I only was doing it because my coach told me to. Lyndsay, you need more visibility. You need exposure. Guest on shows, do videos, start a podcast. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to throw up. But I'm like, okay. So I did it anyways. And like the first videos, I look back and I was like, sweet Jesus. Like I just cringe. And the first few people that I had on my podcast, I'm like, oh man, I was not a great host. And like the first shows that I guested on, like I fumbled on my words. Did not come across confident. And you just have to know that. It's like, okay, the first few are going to suck. I just need to get over it and move on with my life.
Yeah, 100%. I remember the first time before I even launched my podcast, my first podcast in 2018, I was a guest on 3 or 4 podcasts before that point and just fell in love with the medium. I think my first guest appearance was in 2016 or early 17.
You have a good memory.
Something like that. Well, it came up in my Facebook memories
the
other day, and I was like, oh my goodness. My very first guesting. That's crazy. And like, here we are now, like hundreds of episodes in. And I agree. I don't want to go back and listen to those first episodes.
No.
Even the first 20. I'm just like, we don't need to go back to those.
No.
It's fine. And the confidence level, I think, also changes as you have more conversations with people, but also guest on other people's shows.
Uh-huh.
And I think that being a guest on other podcasts is such an underutilized strategy for so many people. And it might be a fear, right? Of, oh, I'm not going to show up well. Or what if they ask me, a curveball question, or
I know
what's going to happen. But I think that as business owners, the number one way to just also reaffirm that you know what you're talking about. As someone who's totally. Like, oh, I support people. That being a guest on other people's show can help you do that. So with that in mind, let's start going through some strategies that we can implement and to repurpose our podcast episodes that we're a guest on.
Absolutely. My first foundational piece or message that I want to get across is the myth that it's all on the host. I find that out there's this mindset that, okay, I'm going to guest on a show. I'm just going to sit back. They're going to ask me questions and then they're going to share it and tag me. And it's like, that's it. Where it's like, no, there is strategy in regards to what your talk topics are, what you write out, what questions you want them to ask so that they can position you in the right way. And you get to talk about what you want to. And like, where is that conversation going? What are you going to talk about? Are you going to seed your programs, your products? What stories are you going to tell? And what is the lead magnet that you're going to share? You have to have a call to action. So all of those pieces before you even show up for that interview are completely paramount and tied to what kind of ROI you're going to get when it's all said and done. And then when it comes to the promoting part, I'll share a little story. So I've been on podcasts, as you know, obviously. And if I left it up to the host, like the way that they set up their show notes, it just had the bio of me. It didn't have any hooks as to what I was sharing. The title was like a play on my business name. So it was kind of like, I don't know, get your content like smoothing, like whatever it was, smooth something. And I was like it was cute, but it didn't tell anybody what the episode was about. Didn't tell anybody what it was that I do, how I can help them. And I was just like, oh man. And then another person, of course, I'm telling all the horrible stories, but another person, like I was on their show and I did find it difficult to like get out the pieces that I wanted. But the reel that they shared or the videos that they were sharing on social were like some rando clips of like not outtakes, but like a funny moment or like an inside joke. It had nothing to do with my expertise. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sharing that because it's not positioning me as an authority at all. So that's, to me, like that is a huge lesson that you cannot leave it up to the host to do all the heavy lifting. You can take that control back so that you can do the visibility, authority building, positioning, repurposing all on your own and do it the way you need to with your brand.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I could also share horror stories
Sure.
where I'm just like, I have a client where he likes to share his episodes on his email. So we write the emails every week for his new episodes that come out. And he was a guest on someone's show. And he said, can you make sure that this is noted in the emails? That way people know that I was on this podcast. And so I looked at the email that had come from a podcast producer.
Yeah.
And the title of the show was his name. The description, the show notes were his title and then how to connect with the host and work with the host.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I have no idea what this episode is about. I don't have any information on this.
Contact.
I am not going to sit through 45 minutes of listening to my client talk for three, sentences about this episode to give people any idea. And so what I did was I stripped it from the audio. I threw it into my transcription service and then which has an AI, part to it. And I said, I need you to create a few LinkedIn post ideas from this person, so my client, based on this conversation and how he was able to show up. And then there are my ideas that I can then tweak and shift and turn into whatever I want. But I shouldn't have had to go through all that. But it's the point of not everyone does their podcast, quote unquote, correctly or in a way that makes it easy for you as a guest to share. And so it really does come to you having to, especially if you want people to listen to the episode, you want to be able to repurpose it into content. So horror stories aside, here's some ideas and ways that we have personally done this. And I have personally done this. And so I will take the audio, I will strip it for, the transcript, get some ideas on some posts that I can create, even if I'm not even promoting those episodes specifically, right? So I can say, okay, go through these questions. What are some questions that the host asked? And then how can I turn those into content for my followers? Mm-hmm. Because I've already talked about it. There's already copy right there for it. Repurpose that. So that's one way. Another way that I've done it personally is that I've taken a podcast episode that I was a guest on, and then I turned it into a full-length blog post based
Perfect.
on the topic, right? And then I just said, hey, can you send me your embed code? I'd love to embed
Yeah.
this conversation on my website. Great. We've got backlinks, we've got the back and forth. Awesome. And that way I can show up as a better guest too and say,
Yeah.
look, I was able to do this awesome thing and create more content for you to share. And I think that you really just have to approach it with what is going to work best for you, right? How do you want to repurpose this? But this gives us some ideas. What are some other ways that we should be kind of considering, okay, how can I take this guest episode and turn it into something more?
You bet. Well, I always ask for the raw video when I'm a guest on someone's show, because then I can put it in my YouTube with the thumbnail. And then I can embed that, of course, on my website. You just alluded to one way is that publishing like a blog post. So, because that way, really, like when you're sharing the episode, you're not sharing their iTunes link or Spotify link. Like you want traffic to go to your website, right? And plus, like the host, they want the backlinks. Obviously, I link to theirs. And I create the image that's in my branding, showcasing that I was a guest on the show. If I don't have their video or whatever, then I do embed. I have a back way of embedding the audio and their video. I do the show notes, just like you say, with the blog, my call to actions, because I want to direct traffic to my site. But on the flip side, too, when you think about it, I don't know about you, but like when you're vetting a guest for your show, like I always look on their website, on their social, how are they sharing other shows that they've guested on? I want to know that they're going to share. And I want to see them in action. I want to see what they're like on a show, how they speak, what their topic is, and get a feel for it. So when you are posting it on your website and potential people that are on summits or events or speakers, they go to your website and they see all the different posts of you being a guest on this, a guest on that, a summit, or whatever it may be. They're like, ooh, they've been there, done that. It's an instant yes in their heads because they don't have to like dig and figure out, will they be suitable? What will they talk about? And same when people just go to your website in general. They're like, oh my God, they're on so many podcasts. They must be an expert on XYZ. So that credibility and that trust factor is like so much faster. And Google, I mean, come on, they want you to refresh and make new content on your website. So to me, it's a no-brainer, but so many people don't. I think too, I don't know if you get this as well, but like some people think, oh, but I talk about these topics so many times, I don't want it to get redundant on my website. But I'm like, honestly, people aren't going to know. The titles are always different. Your conversations are slightly different. It's nuanced. And people need to see the same thing over and over again, worded slightly different for it to go click. Okay, I'm ready to hear it now.
Yeah. And I think it's so true. We had someone on recently who was talking about, this idea of, oh, you have to see something 7 times in order for it to even register as like, hey, there's a thing here. And I was like, as we were talking, she said, if you think about it, that rule was created 100 years ago. How much different? But that was in the 1920s. So how much?
Oh my God, really? I did not know that.
Don't quote me on that. But that's what she said. Like how much different, even if you look at the last 50 years, right? Our attention span, the number of content and ads that are being thrown at us, we're so distracted. Our minds are on a million different things. We're trying to juggle a million different things and so much more than, our predecessors have had to. Yes. And so I think that it's okay to have to be repetitive, to the point of saying, I already talked about this before. Here's a different angle. Here's a different spin on it. And that's okay. That's what I'm known for. And that's how I can support people.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to get comfortable with being repetitive and being redundant.
Yeah. I know I am.
Yes. Get comfortable. So with this in mind, what are some things that we can, all right, you mentioned the blog post, you mentioned creating additional, like maybe a media page on our website. What are some other ways that we can do that? And then how often should we be sharing about these past episodes, right? So I've seen someone do this where it is Repetitive or Evergreen, where every week she does like a feature Friday. This is where I was featured. And some of these podcast episodes are from years ago, right? So like she's like
cool.
resharing past
The
stuff.
hosts love that.
Yes, right. Especially if they still have a show, right? I highly recommend that if you have a list of her media page, double check that they still have the show, that it's still there. Don't just have it run on repeat. You know, we need to review those things every once in a while.
Yep.
But she's sharing it every week. What do you recommend? Or, you know, should we be just doing the most recent ones? What does that look like?
I think it depends how much other content that you have going out already. Like I have my podcast, so it goes out obviously every week. But I have some people where like they do videos, they're kind of like ad hoc with their social. So if you have back episodes of shows that you've guested on, then batch it and then you like get your content ahead of the game for a few months and then you can like rest easy and plan ahead. So it kind of depends where you're at and kind of how much you've got going on. I know for me, when I'm repurposing shows that I've guested on, I get the video, obviously put up YouTube, do my blog, but I definitely will make more reels than anything else. A, because it's easy. And B, because reels, you can obviously use it for Facebook reels, Instagram reels, you can use it for a story, and YouTube shorts are, you know, crushing it right now. And that gets you in front of people that aren't already following you. So you get new eyeballs and people listening to what you have to say. So that to me is key. And some people are even using the reels in LinkedIn, I've seen every now and then, instead of just the square videos.
Yep.
I'm on the fence. It kind of like, I think it's weird when I see it sometimes, but then I'm like, but hey, it grabbed my attention because it's a different size. So whatever, like it's fine. And they're super short clips. You know, people have short attention span. Just make sure that you're using call to actions with those posts. You can link to the episode that you have on your blog. Hey, you know, do a teaser. And, you know, I also shared this on the episode. Go here to check it out. But don't be afraid to push traffic to your lead magnets or Facebook group or whatever. Like if I'm talking about repurposing like I am today, then of course, if I did a reel, I would want to push my resource of, hey, here's 3 ways to repurpose your episode. I'll put the information below and you can grab the resource. So, because you want to push the listeners, those especially new people, and convert them from being passive to becoming leads. That is a really key tip for sure.
And if you think about it too, like dialing it back to, well, why the heck do we even repurpose? Not everyone's listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
Not everyone is finding these shows. I mean, you're looking at not a lot of people getting a lot of downloads right now. A lot of people are seeing a reduction in the number of downloads they're getting and the visibility that podcasting is getting, even though, yes, it is still a great strategy and love podcasting. But how can we reach people in different and new ways? And I know one of the ways that we connected was I had taken one of my solo episodes and repurposed it into a LinkedIn article. And then you had seen it, which we weren't previously connected at all. You said, memory. Hey, can you be on my show? And I was like, yes. Also, I'd love to have you on my show. And like, that's how the connection came. But that was from a podcast episode that if I had just said, well, everybody's already heard about it, or if everybody's already seen me, they know what I do, we would not be having this conversation right now.
Totally.
So repurposing will help you get in front of different people. And you don't have to worry about actually creating the content because it's already there. Someone else put in a lot of the work to create the episode. You just got to get the right tools. Speaking of tools, what are some tools that you recommend that people can use to maybe help them take those episodes and quickly and efficiently, short of hiring you, right? Because obviously if people are like, I just want help, hand it over to Lyndsay.
Do it for me.
Right, exactly. What are some tools? I personally am using Otter AI, like I said, for the transcription, and they have their built-in AI tools where you can take it and ask it to create social content based on a conversation or based on the transcript. We use Opus Clips as well to take YouTube videos and turn those into Reels, TikToks, Shorts, etc. But what are some other tools that maybe we aren't considering?
There is Descript, which will take the audio, do the transcripts, and they do video clips as well. I tried it. I found it kind of weird, but that's just my own opinion. A lot of people love it
I
and
agree.
swear by it. Pod Squeeze is another one where it's AI tool that takes your transcript, gives you blogs, copy, quotes, you name it. And they do audiograms, quotes, and I think they do video clips, kind of. Don't quote me on that. They're a great company. He's been on my show. Cast Magic is awesome. Actually, the head of relationships was on my show, so that's going live soon. They don't do video clips, but the AI tool in general for like any written copy and ideas and the AI it has behind it is pretty wicked. For videos, what is the one my one client? CapCut, I want to say, I think.
Yeah.
Or I can't remember the name. CapCut. It's okay. It has its good points and bad points and like everything. My favorite is Recast Studio. That's the one that we use for most of our stuff, honestly. It's not cheap, but it does it all for us. What other tools are out there? They're the ones that come to mind mostly, really.
Yeah. So those are the tools. We've got some ideas. What are some maybe things that they can see? I mentioned, some results that I've been able to see from repurposing my episodes. What are some things that maybe you've seen on your end since we've told the horror stories? What are some good things?
Stories, right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a brand new client and they're in the space of sacred geometry, which is something I had to learn about. So we repurposed their guest interviews, and literally the first 4 reels that we put up on YouTube for YouTube Shorts were like 500 views, like right off the cuff. Like it just resonated. Right title, right look, right copy. We got the keywords in there. So that was exciting to see that it was kind of like getting that traction. One of my clients actually got a client from a YouTube short that we did. The woman saw it and it just resonated perfectly, like whatever was said, the headline, and there was a call to action to get on the phone with her. And so she did and became like a big package, high paying client. She just that just hit the note for me and was like, yep, now's the right time. So it's like, you have to be consistent because you never know when it's the right time for someone and they see your consumable content that hits that pain point and solution for them right off the cuff. There are massive action takers out there. And so you got to be out there to capture their attention.
Yeah, I think that it's so important, right? Repurposing content. We are so busy, especially as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and we are pumping out so much content, not just for our own shows or for our own, blogs or newsletters, but also showing up in other people's spaces, that I think that it makes the most sense to stretch that as best we can.
Yeah.
And
why work harder?
The most of it.
I know. And recently, actually, I put out a post and someone approached me that was in the industry and wanted to partner with me because they liked what I put out. And so it's like, you never know what opportunities. And I think too, guests or entrepreneurs or content creators in general are automatically like, oh, I put content out. Let me look at my opt-in stats to see how many people are opting in for those lead magnets. And they do that direct correlation, but they don't necessarily look at the big picture of who's watching, who's listening, who's tuning in, but not commenting or not DMing you, right? And then when the time is right, or our connection, opportunities that come up, partnerships that come up, you never know. You kind of have to look at that big picture when it comes to ROI and monetization, and not only that social media post to lead magnet to client type transaction.
Yeah. Focus on, and this is something that I've been seeing a lot lately, is like, oh, well, I put it out there and, if you build it, they will come. No.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. But did we actually do our best? Did we stretch this as far as it possibly could have been stretched?
Yeah.
Did we turn it into evergreen content that is consistently being pushed in front of our audience? Or did we say, well, it's there. They can get it if they need it.
I checked off a box.
Exactly. Most people need to be told multiple times. They need it reiterated. They need it in different formats. It makes the most sense to just repurpose it. Do this. Come on, guys. Usually I've seen anywhere from 10 to 15 different ways to repurpose an episode. What are some maybe out of the box ways that we haven't talked about that are like, here's some fun ones. If someone's like, all of these are boring, I don't want to write blog posts, or I don't want to, run it through AI services that make my life easier. What are some other maybe out of the box fun ways they can do it?
I mean, I do want to give a shout out to carousels though, because I think they're killer. And it's a way for you to put a lot of content out in one post, but it still be consumable. So people flip through it. And there's always a call to action at the end. I don't know about you, but whenever I see a carousel, I can't help myself because I want to see what's on the next slide.
Yes.
I'm next? Like, more than one tip? Yeah. There's 3 tips in that one? I'm like, yes, please. So those. But actually, I was talking again to Greg, can't remember his last name right now, from Cast Magic, and he repurposes podcasts and what have you to create like emails, but like, and even like ebooks or a course. Like if I'm, again, having a conversation talking about my podcast leverage system, then how can I take that content and create a course out of it? Like he told me all these ways and I was like, that's crazy. And then another gentleman, Mike Alton, he's with Agora Pulse, and he uses the content for his sales team. Mm-hmm. And I was like, ooh. So to attract prospects, like, hey, I see, you were struggling about this or whatever, and here's a clip or a video or whatever that maybe will help you. And so it like piques that interest and gets the conversation started. And even following up, like, oh, I saw that you mentioned this about that. I have this little clip that can help you. Or I forget how he framed it exactly, but like he basically was using the content for sales. And I was like, that is smart.
Yes.
I would never, and answering all those FAQs and like, and for me, I use it sometimes with my clients. Like they'll ask me like, oh, should I do this for the LinkedIn newsletter? I'm like, yes, please. And I'm like, hey, I did a whole blog or I did a whole episode stepping you through it. Go listen to that first. If you want support with it, blah, blah, blah. Or same with like, I coach my clients on like, you can't just post a post and then forget it. Like you have to engage with other people. You have to try to grow your followers. And so I have tips on how to do that. And I've done an episode on that. So I'm like, listen to this. So it helps me help my clients, but it's not having that one-on-one conversation that like I just don't have the bandwidth for. So using it to help your team members, like whatever that may be, is another way to use it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. You guys, if you're watching it, you see me nodding, but for the listeners, I'm nodding a lot over here. There's so much goodness in there. And I think that if we can just take a step back and say, all right, how can I have some fun with this? How can I turn this into something different? And you don't have to do 10 or 15 different ways for one episode today. Just pick one, pick one way and do that. And I'm telling you, it's not only going to bolster your engagement on social media or wherever you're posting this, but it will also allow you to reconnect with that host, which keeps that relationship alive, which I think is so important. Since we're already putting in effort for these relationships, let's keep them alive and make the most of it for both of us.
Agree. And I just feel like there's so many wins. Like you and I right now have covered like sales, email, blogs, relationships, social, like consumable, like getting more opportunities. The host loves it and is more likely to remember you and refer you to someone else. It's like when there's that many benefits to something, it's like, if you don't do anything with it, I kind of feel like shame on you. Like, I'm just like, come on. It's a no-brainer. You get so much bang for your buck.
Agreed. Well, Lyndsay, this has been so good. And I feel like we have some action items that we can take from here.
Yes.
But if someone's like, oh, I need a little more help, I know you have something to support with that.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. I do have a free guide and checklist. That's 3 strategies to leverage and repurpose your guest interviews. And so if they go to leverageyourpodcast.com/guest, they can snap it up.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that we have links for that in the show notes as well. If people are doing other things, they've got that there and can easily go back to it. Again, thank you so much, Lyndsay. This has been
Thanks for having me. I love how you keep it real.
Yes.
You're easy to talk to.
Thanks.